I am Slick Nick, your personal red pill Chad dad, and of course, your personal hairline hero. Let's check out a video with a comment. The video, do I look younger now with this buzz cut? I am 40 years old. Our friend Tobo S, a long supporter of my channel, had this to say, quote, having hair or buzzing it affects how old you look depending a lot on your hairline. When Harry Styles had his hair long, it aged him because he was already Norwood too in his early 20s, end quote. So yeah, let's break that down. Let's talk about that for sure. So for me as a 40-year-old man to say, do I look younger without hair? See, I was already thinking about it, so thank you, Tobo, for pointing that out. Because sometimes when I make videos, I already kind of anticipate what people are gonna say, and I already plan ahead to make the follow-up video. This is kind of one of those examples. Because to me, that was the elephant in the room, as the saying goes. For me to say, hey, do I look younger with this buzz cut? I'm 40 years old. Because it's like, well, we need a reference point. It's like, yeah, if you were 22, then maybe it makes you look older. But if you're 40, maybe you look younger. So I think the best way to really analyze this is going back to my teaching on this channel, and that is, for the most part, if you're gonna go bald, you're gonna do it by the age of 35, because most men who still have a full head of hair by age 35 tend to live the most of the rest of their life with a full head of hair. Even if at the very end they go bald through diffuse thinning, like Johnny Cash. He was a Norwood too pretty much his entire life, and then at the very end, leading up to his death, he started, I mean, he was what? He was late 70s, however old he was. But for the most part, if you make it to age 35, you're pretty much safe with most of your hair for the most part. You may eventually get a little bit of a bald spot. You may thin a little bit in certain spots. But for the most for the most part, you're not just immediately just go bald the next day if you make it to 35. In general, that's how it works in general. So with that being said, let's keep that in mind, because that's saying that roughly, and another one of my theories is whatever age that man is, that much percent of the population probably is aggressively balding. So that, let's just use 35 for example, okay? If you're gonna go aggressively bald, you're probably gonna do it by age 35. Well, at age 35, the average 35-year-old man, that's saying about 35% of the population is already aggressively bald. That means a third is starting to go bald, but not necessarily perceived as bald, and the other third is really having no real noticeable hair loss for the most part. That's really what that would tell us in general. So if a third of the population by age 35 is bald, a third is having some hair loss, but they're not being perceived as bald, and then another third has zero hair loss ultimately. That says 1 out of 3 men are bald, noticeably bald. So people have a perception of what a 35-year-old man should look like. And 1 out of 3 35-year-old men should be bald by those standards. So that would make sense that, well, if you shave your hair and you are 35, would that make you look older or younger? What about when you're 40? What about when you're 50? Or what about when you're 20? So the reference point ultimately is, I think, largely how old are you now compared to 35? Because in theory, if you're 22, yeah, it could definitely make you look closer to 30. Not that that's a bad thing. I would say, if anything, it could be a good thing to be perceived as older if you are young, because what you learn when you're older, in hindsight, is that one of your weaknesses in being young is that you're young, because you don't understand how the world works. You're still very caught up on superficial things, thinking that most of your identity is your looks, and in reality it's how you treat other people and whether they think that you're of value based on how much attention you pay. Are you willing to give them pity? Are you willing to give them praise? Because that's really what most people want. What are your strengths? Are you able to use your strengths to help that person? Are you able to smile and be a positive energy? Are you able to make them laugh? Things that people actually want, versus when you're 20 years old, oh, how do I look? Because that means people will like me. That's such a small fraction of it. The majority is everything else. So I know all this stuff. This is information. But what I'm saying is, if you're perceived to be older, it could be that you're perceived to be more mature, more intelligent, more stable, and therefore you can be the thing that that other person needs, like that emotional support, like giving them the pity that they need. Oh, that's horrible that you went through that. I can't even imagine. Or praise. You did that? That's amazing. I couldn't even come close to doing something that well. That's really what most people want in conversation. People are so desperate for that, and they hardly ever get it. So I could see how if you are younger, looking older wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. And I could see if you're older and you shave it off, looking younger wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. One more thing I want to close this video with is, what if you're a guy who does go bald, say in your early 20s, and you start shaving off all your hair, you're doing a zero guard buzz. Well, give it 5 years. Are you really going to age much? No. Give it another 5 years. Are you really going to age much? No. I mean, even if you're going gray, is anyone going to see it? No. So it's funny because you could be shaving off your hair at age 20, even if you're not bald. And even if you do go bald later, people are going to be so used to you not having hair anyway. In theory, it's like you're not really aging. And I think that's pretty interesting. As long as you keep your physical fitness up, which that ages you greatly, which that's another elephant in the room, and kind of the trick question there in the title of the other video. Does this buzz cut make me look younger? I'm 40. Let's face the other obvious thing, that most men age 40, especially in the United States, are not as physically fit as I am. Not body shaming anyone, just stating a fact, because it's a very specific diet that I have, and a workout routine that I have, and a lifestyle that I live. And that leads to this. So it's personal choices. You get to decide which 5 things in life matter most to you, and that's one of my 5. So ultimately, even aside from the hair, there's the fact that I'm physically fit. And the average 40-year-old man in America is not physically fit. The average is going to be at least somewhat overweight, and I'm not. So that in itself is going to put me in a situation where I look younger. So we're comparing, so we've got the fact that in theory, if we compare me to the average 40-year-old man, maybe in a lot of people's mind, a 40-year-old man should be balding anyway, should be half bald anyway. So this kind of takes that away, even though that's my hairline. It's not horrible for a 40-year-old guy, but we've removed that. We've put me in a situation where I'm not overweight because I made decisions not to be, and I continue to make those decisions every day to actually be healthy, not just to not have excess body fat, but to actually be healthy and get the protein and the fiber, etc., that I need out of my diet, all the nutrition and minerals and that sort of thing. And then there's the fact that, yeah, as you know, I do these videos. What I wear is very important to me. I want to make sure that I wear clothes that are not too big. I want to make sure that they look tasteful, you know, that sort of thing. And that I don't spend a lot of money on it, but I keep up with all that. So does this, it's like the cliche, does this dress make me look fat? Does this buzz cut make me look younger? It can. Or it could make you look older. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Your comments belong right here.